Hey everybody, it is Ed. Today's video, we are going to talk about the day that my mother and father, Richie and Angela Hess, had the pleasure of meeting first with Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis Presley's manager, and then with the man himself, Elvis Presley. So, next best thing to having my mom and dad here telling the story is that it was notated within their official fan club newsletter. This newsletter, this particular issue, was released late 1973. Now, the goal of the fan club at the time when they started was to get out 6 newsletters a year, 6 volumes. So once every 2 months was what they had planned to get each newsletter out. I think at the beginning they were pretty successful with doing so. But of course, over time, delays would happen, things would occur, and there would be delays. So what would wind up happening is they would wind up doubling up on issues. If, one was missed, what they did was when it was finally completed and everything, they had enough material for the 2 issues and they would mail it out as like a double issue because there was more material inside. So there were occasions where that happened as well. But with this particular issue, again, this came out, I would have to say sometime late of 1973. I'm not exactly sure what month, but it would definitely have to be after August 28th because I'm going to read to you. Little story time. Hooray. All right, but again, this is for EP fans only. This was a newsletter of the Kings Court, New York City fan club that ran from 1973 past 1977, past his death. However, my parents were only involved with the fan club up until sometime in 1975. So this issue deals with their trip to Vegas in August of 73 and their meeting Elvis and the circumstances behind it. So sit back, strap yourselves in. Let's do a little story time. Let's just start with here. Backstage, the way it was. I'm going to read. It says, we, then in parentheses, Pat, Jim, Richie, and Angela arrived in Las Vegas on Sunday, August 26th. Again, this is 1973. For 3 days, we had spoken to Vernon Presley and many of Elvis's friends, bodyguards, and musicians about the club. The plaque we had for him on behalf of the King's Court, see photo, and Elvis. On August 29th, Colonel Parker made the arrangements for us to meet him. I'm going to show you a quick picture of the plaque that they had that they wanted to present him. You can't read what it says, but it is inscribed, tells you here what it was inscribed with. I will read that to you now. It says the plaque read, "To Elvis Presley, the greatest entertainer in the world, with pride, from the official staff and members of the King's Court Elvis Presley Fan Club of New York." So it goes on to say, at 8:20 that evening, we were escorted by Ed Bonja, who works closely with Colonel Parker and Tom Diskin, through the employee entrance which leads backstage. We passed 4 or 5 guards who okayed our admittance. Finally, we were outside the dressing rooms. You could hear Jackie's act going out on front. Jackie being Jackie Kahane, the comedian. Colonel Parker greeted us and handed Angela and Pat each a white scarf from Elvis. So the scarves that my mom and Pat are wearing in that particular picture were given to them by Colonel Parker, not Elvis himself. Not those, but every other scarf my mother has was given to her by Elvis. Okay. All right, as we were waiting for Elvis to come out of his dressing room, we saw the Sweet Inspirations, the Stamps, and Vernon Presley. Of course, of the people we saw, those who knew we had a plaque were glad to see we were able to present it to Elvis. At last, the exciting moment arrived. Joe Esposito, along with a few other bodyguards, appeared first. Elvis was close behind, dressed in a white jumpsuit with royal blue and gold beading. Colonel Parker told Elvis that there were 4 people from New York with an award for him. We all introduced ourselves as we shook his hand. The girls, of course, got to kiss him. At this point, we were all stunned, and when it came time to take the picture, we fumbled for our places around Elvis. As the photo was being taken, Pat was relaying her presentation speech to Elvis, which was somewhat shortened since she had forgotten most of it by then. We had a few more moments with him before we heard 2001 begin. And as he entered the elevator, which leads backstage, he turned and apologized for not being able to spend more time with us. The show was already delayed a few minutes. Well, perhaps there'll be a next time. We also had the pleasure of having our picture taken with Colonel Parker, see back cover. We were all thrilled with meeting Elvis. For Jim, this was his second meeting, the first in August of 1969, and was fortunate enough to have a photo taken then also. It's funny they don't mention the autograph there, but the excitement wasn't over. Now we were anxious to tell everyone the good news, and we couldn't wait for the photos to be developed. And as you can see, they came out, thanks to Eddie, who did a great job of photography. We would like to relay a special thanks to Bob Ficato, who donated his time and effort to have our plaque made. So that's it. That's just the story that was given within the newsletter. So no real specifics of what they talked about, if anything, other than them just doing the presentation, getting the picture taken, and maybe just some simple pleasantries. But that's pretty much it. So, and then there's actually another story here I'll read for you quick. It's called Lisa. This is by Pat, club president. All right, it says, Lisa Marie arrived Sunday afternoon, August 26th, with Vernon Presley. They were spotted in the lobby by our two spies, Jim and Richie. Lisa attended every show through the dinner show, Friday, August 31st, and during our stay, Elvis would introduce her, and she stood up proudly, greeting the audience. One night, Elvis laughed and commented, quote, "She's a bigger ham than her daddy." Glancing over at Lisa during the show is quite entertaining. She's got the words and movements down pat. Perhaps in 15 years, Lisa Marie Presley will be packing them into Las Vegas Hilton. Most of her outfits are adorable. Most of her outfits are adorably set off with little capelets. This is definitely a case of like father, like daughter. After one of the greatest shows I've ever seen, which was the Midnight Show, August 29th, I had a short elevator ride with Lisa. The conversation went like this. "Hi, Lisa, I'm Pat." She turned away sleepy-eyed and somewhat shy. When I asked if she was tired, she replied, "Yes, my daddy stayed on so long." The show was an hour and 15 minutes, but as far as a fan is concerned, Elvis could perform all night. But at 2 a.m. in the morning, little Lisa had a right to be tired. I told her she was a very pretty little girl, which is an understatement. She quickly answered, quote, "I look like my daddy." The elevator stopped on my floor, so I said goodnight. She leaned over to watch me get off, and as the doors closing, hollered, "Bye, Pat." Lisa's activities included a trip to Circus, one of her favorite spots in Las Vegas, with its aerialists, animal acts, clowns, etc. Ice cream is also a big favorite. So there you go. I'll give you a little sample of what type of material you will get in these newsletters, should I get the chance to be able to reprint them and make them available to whoever is interested. Okay, but again, these are actual photos, real photos from the actual negative of the meeting of my dad, my mom, Colonel Parker, Pat, and Jim. Jim, unfortunately, no longer is with us. He did pass away back in 1985, I believe it was. And he is surely missed. All right, and then, of course, Jim, Pat, Elvis, my mom, and my dad. There you go. All right, so again, a little bit of history of the day that my parents, Richie and Angela Hess, and Pat and Jim were able to meet Elvis from the King's Court fan club and present him with the plaque. And then, of course, if you want to see the story of how my parents had their picture signed by Elvis, of them with Elvis, that you can go back through my video catalog and search for that. And again, trying to just piece together pieces of history of my parents with their history of the fan club. So hopefully we can get this documentary made someday. Maybe just edit all of these together. I don't know. We'll figure it out. All right, but if you want to help and if you want to contribute, you can always do so. And I leave in the description the ways that you can help out if you choose to do so. And those of you who do choose to do so, I truly appreciate it and I thank you. All right, but anything that gets contributed really goes back to trying to do things for the channel, whether it's getting new things to show you or potentially starting to get new equipment so I can hopefully get this documentary done correctly that I want to get done. Again, only time will tell. We'll see what happens, but I'm going to keep plugging forward. All right. But if you would like, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. I appreciate you all watching. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. Take care, everybody.